Our first presenter today is Elaine Belardo. Elaine is the founder and executive director of Deeper Windows, and she is also the community educator for the Alzheimer's Association. She is a wonderful lady and a wonderful friend, so if you would just welcome Elaine. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. I really want this to be what it needs to be for you. So because the second speaker is not going to be here, we can adjust to make it exactly what you want it to be. So my area of speaking to you this morning is really about a dementia diagnosis and then becoming a caregiver. And so with my 6.5 years of caregiving my husband in the home, that gives me some pretty realistic knowledge about what it can look like. And so although I was caring for someone with Alzheimer's dementia, which is a progressive, aggressive disease, the caregiving journey is still going to be very unique to anybody in here who is a caregiver, either short-term, remotely, or long-term. So what is it you're here to expect? Do you want to hear about caregiving and what to expect in a caregiving journey and how to prepare for it and how you can care plan for a caregiving journey? Because there is a way that you can plan for it. We will all, at some point, be in a caregiving type situation, whether we need it, whether we give it, or whether we're the ones that are just waiting to get it. We're all going to be there because the condition that is common to man is that we're all going to die. We're all going to leave this earth at some point, some way. We don't know how, but we are. And so because we don't know what it will look like, there are some things that you can put in place where you know. So the last conference that I came to kind of did all of when the doctor gives you your diagnosis and tells you to go home and get your affairs in order, and you do the will and the power of attorney and the trust and all of that. Well, now we're talking about what happens after you've gotten the diagnosis and what's next. And so that's the caregiver journey. So I'd like to start with the 10 warning signs of dementia. Not that I expect that anybody in here has to have it. It is not something that you have to have. It is not something that you have to get. The greatest risk factor for dementia is growing old. That's the greatest risk factor. So we all stand that chance the older we get, but it doesn't mean that you have to get it. It is not a normal part of aging. So if you kind of go over the 10 warning signs, then you know what you're looking for. But don't look at the warning signs and think, I have 1 or 2, or I do that. We're talking, even with these warning signs, they're specific. Like, my husband was doing things, there's more than just forgetting where your keys are. It's not even knowing how to look for your keys. So it's really different and really specific. So we can go over that, and the video and the experts can kind of guide you through that. The video, if I start it, is 45 minutes. If we just do conversation, then we can start and stop. But if I start the video, it's a program, and I'll go all the way through the video. So and it's good and it's helpful. So do you want to start with that? Yeah? Okay, all right, let's start with that. Okay, so when we talk about navigating the golden years, I just want to start with what I thought was the definition of the golden years of adulthood. I really thought that it was the span of time between retirement and the beginning of age-related changes that could cause you to eventually slow down over time. And I really saw it as a gradual aging with really much to look forward to. So not a negative thing. I don't think the golden years in my mind was a negative thing. In my time before you, this is what I'm going to discuss. I'm going to discuss the 10 warning signs of dementia, and we'll start with that. And then we'll discuss caregiving, care planning, caregiver respite, the Deeper Window Association, and the 2 hardest choices. Okay.
Welcome to the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's, presented by the Alzheimer's Association. This
You want me to
program
pause it?
is designed for those who want to learn more about the warning signs of Alzheimer's and other dementias, and those who have noticed memory or thinking changes in themselves or others. We're going to explore the most common warning signs of Alzheimer's to help you understand the difference between what may be normal aging and what could be the sign of something serious, like Alzheimer's or another dementia. By the end of this program, the goal is for you to describe typical age-related memory, thinking, and behavior changes. Recognize common warning signs of Alzheimer's and dementia. Discuss the tips for approaching someone about memory concerns. Explain the importance of early detection and benefits of diagnosis. Identify possible tests and assessments for the diagnostic process. And name the resources available through the Alzheimer's Association. In this program, we will follow a made-up story of the Garcia family, where two adult daughters navigate their mother's memory changes and want to find out what is causing them. Although the experience is similar to that of many real families facing memory concerns, it is not representative of everyone. Let's meet the Garcias. Mary, a 73-year-old widow, lives alone. She's a retired teacher who has always kept her house very clean. Her daughter Lydia has recently been noticing laundry pileup and junk mail and old newspapers lying around the house. Lydia is the eldest of Mary's two daughters. She lives just a few miles away and visits her mother frequently. Patricia lives in another state. She works long hours and isn't able to visit her mother as often as she'd like. She communicates with Mary and Lydia frequently via phone and text messaging. Concerned about their mother's unusual messiness and forgetfulness, Lydia reaches out to her sister, Patricia. Click play to hear from Dr. Stephen Salloway, who is included in the story as the Garcia's old neighbor, but is in fact a practicing physician who has been recognized as a leading expert in aging, Alzheimer's disease, and other memory disorders.
As we get older, cognitive problems become more noticeable for almost everybody, and it can vary from person to person. Typically with age, people have trouble coming up with the word they want right when they want it. They have trouble remembering names, and they don't think quite as quickly. What's more concerning, or what might be the beginning of a memory problem, is people have a lot of trouble coming up with words or names, and it's happening more frequently, and the words or names don't necessarily come to them later. And then they start misplacing things, but not just once in a while, because we all misplace things, but more often. And it begins to interfere day to day. That should be a warning sign for people that this might be the beginning of a memory problem.
Many people believe that dementia and Alzheimer's mean the same thing. While they are related, there are significant differences between the two. To begin, click What is Dementia?
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow in the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain, or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
Next, play What is Alzheimer's disease?
So I'm going to give you a handout with the Alzheimer's umbrella and the dimensions underneath.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alzheimer described specific changes in the brain, what we now call the formation of plaques and tangles. Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and impacts memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to brain tissue loss and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's, such as memory loss, behavioral issues, problems with thinking, planning, and at the end stage, swallowing.
Finally, click on the bottom box to hear about the importance of recognizing.
It's important to know what the warning signs of Alzheimer's are and to be on the lookout. We know that we change over time, and the warning signs of Alzheimer's can be warning signs of a number of things. But when you see those in yourself or in someone you care about, it's important to check it out, to consult with a doctor, to find out what you're dealing with. Some of the things that can look like Alzheimer's may be other treatable conditions. If it is Alzheimer's, you still want to know as early as possible, because that gives the person and the family time to plan, time to make decisions, and it also gives the person with the disease a voice and allows them to say what they want.
Working with experts in the field, the Alzheimer's Association created a list of warning signs to help identify problems that may be related to Alzheimer's or another dementia. It's possible for individuals to experience one or more of these signs in varying degrees. A person does not have to experience every sign all of the time in order for there to be a concern. The list is intended to be a tool to help identify changes in a person's memory, thinking, or behavior. However, it is important to note that only a medical professional can make a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia. Let's explore each warning sign and how they differ from typical age-related changes. Start by clicking box number 1. Memory loss that disrupts daily life. One of the most common signs of Alzheimer's, especially in the early stage, is forgetting recently learned information. Others include forgetting important dates or events, asking the same questions over and over, and relying more on memory aids or family members for things that were once easy to handle. This is different from the more common age-related forgetfulness, where an individual may forget names, appointments, or other information, but can remember them later. Throughout this section, click Next Sign when you are ready to move on.
Okay, so what that looked like in my husband, memory loss that disrupts daily life, is he had had a job, been in the military for 26 years, and was forgetting. He worked on 13th Street, and he would put a GPS in his car to go to 12th Street in downtown Kansas City, Missouri. That's not typical. You wouldn't need GPS to take you a block. So that was a warning sign.
Challenges in planning or solving problems. Some people experience changes in their ability to develop and follow a plan or work with numbers. This may result in trouble following a familiar recipe, or keeping track of monthly bills, or difficulty concentrating and taking much longer to complete tasks. A typical age-related change may be making occasional errors when managing bills or household finances. Click play to hear from John, who is living with dementia with Lewy bodies, about how he experienced challenges with planning.
I was probably spending 4 to 5 times more time preparing for something than I did, say, 5 or 10 years ago, because of I would lose my thought, I'd lose my focus, I'd get anxious, I wouldn't get to sleep. I was thinking of this, I was in my sleep, I was thinking about what I was anxious about, which was I was trying to remember, which was I was trying to prepare, which I was trying to do. So it was really a vicious circle so I was able to control it a lot, so that people wouldn't see things, and there weren't things to be seen. It's what was disturbing me was what effort I had to put into to do the things I used to do more easily.
So that effort that they're putting in is exhausting. So they are working hard and they're trying to stay on top of things. It is exhausting. So my husband would have presentations at KU and UMKC and did ground rounds. He did lots of, those were big things. And I would say, well, what are you going to do? He's like, I got to go prepare. I got to go prepare. He never, even when he was in law school, he didn't do all of that. And there was just like a hyper fixation on, I've got to be there at a certain time and trying to remember the time and trying to remember what he was going to say. And it was just a hyper fixation. It wasn't regular and it wasn't typical. That part about numbers and working with numbers and household chores, he would pay our mortgage twice in the same month. You can only do that so many times, before it starts causing major problems. So they're big things. It's not little tiny things. So again, as you're looking at warning signs, they're big. They're more glaring than you can imagine. They're big. A common mistake yesterday when I made a deep deposit at the bank, I told her one number and it was off by $100. And then I redid the math and I was like, I see it. I see what I did because the numbers weren't lined up. But that's not dementia. That's just, I didn't write it in the right place. And I don't even worry about that kind of stuff.
Difficulty completing familiar tasks. People living with dementia often find it hard to complete routine tasks, such as driving to a familiar place, writing a grocery list, or remembering how to play a favorite game. A more typical age-related change would be occasionally needing help to use a microwave or television remote. This could also include having trouble with new or unfamiliar technology. Click play to learn more from a dementia care expert.
Some people have difficulty with math or with reading in a way that's unusual to them. And once again, this is a change in that person. So for example, we all know somebody who was never able to balance their checkbook, right? So that wouldn't be a warning sign for them. But if somebody who always balanced their checkbook to the penny suddenly was paying bills, the same bill over and over, and not able to balance their finances, well, that would be a sign for them.
Okay, so that organizing a grocery list, he didn't mind. He always liked going to the grocery store, and I would send him with a list, maybe 3 things, maybe 5 things. And sometimes he'd come back with 2 things, sometimes he'd come back with nothing. I said, well, did you go to the grocery store? And he'd say, you know what? I started talking, he was smart. And the smarter you are, the more you can play it off. You can always find a way. And he'd say, no, I started talking to so-and-so down the street and I didn't make it. But give me the list again and I'll go. And he'd go back and he would try it again. And then sometimes he would go and he might get it, but then he forgot that he went to the grocery store on the way into the house. And he would leave the ice cream in the car. And I said, well, I thought you got ice cream. Or sometimes he'd bring the ice cream in and he'd put it on top of the refrigerator. So it's glaring. Those are more glaring things. It's not just, I forgot the ketchup. It's, I forgot I went to the grocery store. So his were glaring.
Confusion with time or place. People living with Alzheimer's or another dementia may lose track of dates, seasons, or the passage of time. They may have trouble understanding something if it happened in the past or is taking place in the future, or become confused about where they are or how they got there. One example of a more typical age-related change is getting confused about what day it is, but figuring it out later.
And what this looked like, and my husband, we'd go to my son's track meets, we'd fly, get to the hotel, check in the hotel, and I'm like looking at, okay, what's the track meet schedule? And I'm trying to figure it out. And he's downstairs checking out. He had checked out, and the lady would call and say, ma'am, are you checking out? I thought you had just checked in, but your husband's down here checking you out. He didn't know. No relation to time. No realization that we had flown, that we had, got a rental car. No realization. And then I'd say, Jose, we're here for Jared's track meet, and we haven't even seen the track meet. Oh, that's right. And then, play it off. So they're big, glaring kind of things. In November, he asked the kids one day, "Is it Easter?" Just no connection to time. Just losing his connection to time.
Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. Vision problems may be a sign of dementia for some individuals. This can lead to difficulty with balance and trouble reading. It can also create problems judging distance and determining color or contrast, which may cause issues with driving. A more age-related This sign in particular shows that Alzheimer's can cause symptoms that affect more than just memory and can impact a person's daily life in a variety of ways. Click play to hear an expert explain.
Alzheimer's disease is not just a disease of memory. It can affect other things too. It can affect the way that we perceive what we see. So sometimes somebody in the early stages of Alzheimer's might go to the eye doctor because they're having trouble seeing is just fine, but the way they're perceiving what they're seeing may be difficult.
And so some of our participants at the Deeper Window, they just have, their spatial perception is so poor that they need guidance with walking. Like, you have to really support them. My husband had some issues with balance, but he didn't really have a lot of spatial perception issues.
New problems with words in speaking or writing. People living with Alzheimer's may have trouble following or joining a conversation. They might stop in the middle of a conversation and forget what they were talking about or repeat themselves. They may also struggle with finding the right word or calling things by the wrong name. They could start describing things or people rather than calling them by their name. It's more typical for older adults to occasionally have trouble finding the right word. To hear from Phil, who is living with Alzheimer's, about his experience with this warning sign, click the play button.
The other thing that I've increasingly been struggling with are words, which I've dealt with words my entire life, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
So just that finding the right word or finding a word. Again, the bigger your vocabulary is, the more words you can find to fill and hide. So my husband had he read 5 newspapers a day before he started his job every day. So he had a vocabulary, he was a writer, he was good at that. When that started to go away, he could just pick out another word. So it took a long time to get him diagnosed because he had a lot of ways to cover. And the doctor said when people are super intelligent or they're well-read, they just find another word because there's other words. And it takes longer to diagnose. Plus, he was only 50.
Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. This sign is not about losing your keys every once in a while, misplacing things from time to time, but being able to retrace steps to find them is a normal age-related change. A person living with Alzheimer's disease, however, may lose something and not be able to recall when it was last seen or used. He or she may start leaving things in unusual places, such as putting shoes in the refrigerator. Because of the changes happening in the person's brain, he or she may grow increasingly suspicious of people and accuse others of stealing. This may occur more frequently as time goes by. Further.
So some people wonder if they lose their keys or their glasses or their purse, is that a sign of Alzheimer's? And one thing that I would say about that is, for most of us, we might misplace something, but then if we retrace our steps, we can usually find it. We can usually remember. For a person with Alzheimer's, sometimes they're not able to retrace their steps. Sometimes that memory is just gone. And so when they do find their keys next to the phone because they got interrupted by a phone call when they were coming in and they set their keys down in an unusual space, so there they are next to the phone. If that happened to you or me, we'd probably remember, oh yeah, the phone was ringing when I came in the door. I put down my keys. The person with Alzheimer's might not remember. They might wonder who's moving their keys around because they never put their keys by the phone. So that's just a little bit of a difference in some of the dynamics with losing things in Alzheimer's.
And sometimes it doesn't make sense where they look. So my husband, the wallet was the thing that he lost all the time. So he'd misplace the wallet, not know where he put it, sometimes hide it from himself. But then to go look on the patio, in the patio basket, that's not a reasonable place to look for a wallet because it wouldn't be there. That's not where it would be. It would be somewhere probably in the house, either in the bedroom or in the kitchen. But the patio is not where it's going to be. Take all the cushions off. It's not. That's not typical. So he would look in places that, because he didn't have a point of reference. He didn't. You've got to remember that you came home, that you came into the kitchen, that you usually set it down in the kitchen, or you took it upstairs when you changed your uniform. One of two places. But he's looking in the kids' room, looking in the bathrooms, so the search doesn't make sense because the memory is not there. The short-term memory is not there as to what he did when he came home.
Decreased or poor judgment. Individuals may experience changes in judgment or decision-making. For example, they may start making poor decisions with money or pay less attention to grooming or hygiene. This can be especially common in individuals who live alone. Making a bad decision once in a while, such as forgetting to get an oil change, is a more typical age-related change. Click play to hear from Teresa, who is living with Alzheimer's, about this sign.
The way I kept my house, and all of a sudden, everything was okay with me. It's like, oh, it's a pile, I'm tired. So my dining room table usually looked like it was someone's office, because I always would say I would do it tomorrow. And then my bedroom, as far as clothing, I would just put it in a corner, put it in a chair. And all of this is just, I wouldn't say it looked like I was a pet rat, but really I was, because I never threw anything away. I always would say, I'll get to it, but I never did get to it. So just the way of my standard of living, it was actually decreasing.
So what this looked like for Jose, he would take his uniform off and he just kept putting on the same thing, just the exact same thing, never changed it. On the weekend, just kept wearing the same sweatshirt and the same pants. That wasn't typical for him. Like, he would always, he loved doing laundry, so I don't love doing laundry, but that's what he did. He loved doing laundry, so he would always change into a clean outfit every day when he came home for work, but it just changed, and he just started wearing the same sweatshirt and the same pants, and it just became super quiet. The poor judgment with dealing with money, there's still $100,000 that I can't find, and like there can be big glaring things, especially when he's the breadwinner. We had 3 houses, and I was in charge of one, he was in charge of another, and he did not know that the renter would write the check. She recognized there was something wrong with him. She would write the check for the rent and put it in, and then 3 days, 4 days later, it would bounce. But we had money in the account. So the mortgage, you don't rely on a renter to pay your mortgage. So the money was always in the account. She was letting us pay the mortgage. And so one day when we needed to pay like a large sum, I said, well, just write a check. He's like, I can't write a check. I said, why can't you write a check? He said, there's no money in that account. I said, there's no money in the account. Where did it go? So then that just started like this big process of trying to figure out with the bank, like, what was she doing? And she just was allowing him to think. She'd call him and say, I put the money in, and he'd see that there was a deposit, and then the check would bounce. And she did that to the tune for a whole year. and destroyed the house, and all kinds of things happened. But he just didn't know. He just didn't know. He didn't know. So you have to try to get all those things taken care of, and it's just poor judgment because he didn't know. Ordering things from Publishers Clearinghouse, he would have never have done that. You know, blue rugs coming, there's nothing blue in our house. You know, just doing all kinds of things that just weren't consistent with who he was.
Withdrawal from work or social activities. It's normal as we age to lose some interest in being social with friends and family. However, someone who is experiencing dementia-related changes may start to lose their ability to hold or follow a conversation. As a result, they might begin backing out of activities they once enjoyed. He or she might also have trouble keeping up with a favorite team or activity. Because of the changes the person is experiencing, he or she may lose the confidence to engage with others. Click play to hear Dr. Salloway discuss this change.
One of the most common changes, and early on, is the person's comfort zone shrinks a little bit, and then that gets worse throughout the course of the illness. So they're less comfortable going out, they're less motivated to do things than they were in the past. So there's some change in day-to-day functioning that way. I think people also lose confidence in their cognitive abilities because they may not recognize someone or know their name or find the right word, and they'll feel awkward, and they don't want people to notice that, so they feel more comfortable at home or in situations with family where they're very, very comfortable with that wouldn't concern them. So people tend to withdraw a little bit and be less outgoing. Can be one of the early signs of Alzheimer's.
So my husband was super friendly, outgoing. He was everybody's friend and champion. He knew how to work a room, and he just started withdrawing, just sitting on one same spot in the couch every night when he'd come home from work. He was a huge Dallas Cowboy fan, completely lost interest in football, lost interest in college sports. He just completely lost interest. It just all went away. And I'd say, well, the Cowboys are on. He's like, oh, they are? You know. I said, well, do you want to watch? He's like, no, we don't have to. Or you can put it on. And then I'd put it on, but just no reaction. No reaction to a fumble, no reaction to a touchdown, no reaction. So he was just losing that connection with something that he really loved and had really enjoyed. We had traveled to go to the Cowboys. That's how we spent anniversaries, going to see the Cowboys play. So for him to just withdraw completely was very, very unusual.
Changes in mood and personality. Individuals living with Alzheimer's or another dementia may experience mood and personality changes, becoming confused, suspicious, depressed, fearful, or anxious. They might get easily upset when out of their comfort zone. A more common change is developing very specific ways of doing things and becoming upset or irritable when that routine is disrupted. Click play to hear Dr. Salloway share more.
Another early sign of Alzheimer's or dementia is subtle changes in behavior. So all of a sudden, the family may notice the person is more easily irritated, or more impatient, or a little moody, or have a shorter fuse, or more anxious. Now, there's lots of things that can cause that, but often that can be an early symptom of Alzheimer's or go along with the early symptoms of memory loss.
Okay, so like the moodiness and the anxiety, like those were rising. Like he was just a really supernaturally calm person, very even-keeled, never hyper excited, enthusiastic, but not crazy or anything like that. And then he just started to go down. Just his whole countenance just went further and further down, and he became more fearful and more anxious and just lots of anxiety, which, I mean, he was a super confident person. So for that to change, it was big. He was comfortable at home, but he was still even quiet at home as he was starting to decline. So by the time he was diagnosed, he was moderate. It was moderate. So he wasn't in the milder stages, it was moderate, and it advanced fast because he was 50.
As mentioned before, an individual does not have to experience all 10 of these symptoms all of the time in order for there to be a cause for concern. If you notice any of these signs to any degree in yourself or someone else, it's important to take action.
So taking action is key.
Let's check back in with the Garcia family and see how the sisters decide to take action after noticing signs in their mother. Click the play button to hear what Dr. Salloway has to say.
So how do you know if it's serious enough to check with a doctor?
Memory is not all or none, especially when there are early symptoms or signs. So on a good day, people might function very well and not really even, no one notices there's a memory problem. But on other days, especially if they're tired, then things become more noticeable. So memory is variable. It's not all or none. And then there are different type of symptoms that develop for each person. So some people may have trouble with language, may have trouble with organizing themselves, may have trouble navigating while driving, and other people don't have the same symptoms. So you don't have to have every symptom of Alzheimer's to be concerned. And I think the most important thing is determining what has changed from that person's normal level of functioning. And usually people have a pretty keen sense of, what they can normally do well. And then when either they or the family notice that there has been some change from that usual pattern of functioning, that should be a warning sign to people. But they don't have to check off all the boxes.
It's important to note that these warning signs are intended to be a guide to help identify problems that may be related to Alzheimer's or another dementia. Individuals may experience one, some, or all of these signs in varying degrees. A person does not have to experience every symptom for an exact period of time. Any sign or change in memory, thinking, or behavior should be discussed with a doctor. Now let's take a look at why it's important to address any changes you observe rather than dismiss them as normal aging, and why you should seek answers from a medical professional. Friends and family are often the first to notice changes in a person before they notice them in themselves. Click Hear from the Expert to learn more from Dr. Salloway again.
It's a very interesting phenomenon that people who have memory problems are often less aware of it than family members or their friends who know them well. One of the reasons for that is our ability to monitor ourselves, which is an important part of brain function, decreases when we start having memory problems. Not in everybody, but commonly, in more than half the people with memory problems. And so the person is just not keeping track of the trouble they're having day to day. But the family members are, paying attention. If they're paying attention, they see, boy, this is starting to happen a lot, and the person's not aware of it. So the family's more aware, and they may talk to their loved one about it, and they say, I've noticed you've been repeating yourself. And they say, I'm not repeating myself. And that could either be due to the fact that they're not aware of it, or they may not want to acknowledge it.
To hear from a real caregiver who was the first to notice signs in her husband, click What Did Mary Know?
I was all adamant about what was happening to Daryl. I wasn't sure. I didn't know. And this wasn't the person that I know. This wasn't the person. Daryl was my husband was very, he always had to be building or designing or working with his hands. And it was getting to the point where he wasn't, and he was becoming very frustrated when he was forgetting to do things or go places.
Yeah.
If you notice changes in memory, thinking, or behavior in someone, it's important to have a conversation with the person. Because it's natural to feel nervous or uncertain about what to say or how to offer support in this type of situation, the Alzheimer's Association developed 10 steps to help prepare people to share concerns and take action. Start by assessing the situation. Click box 1 to learn more. Step 1. What changes in memory, thinking, or behavior do you see? What is the person doing or not doing that's causing concern? Step 2. Ask yourself what else is going on. Various conditions can cause changes in memory, thinking, or behavior. Are there other health or lifestyle issues that could be contributing to these changes, such as stress or a change in medication? Step 3. Learn about the signs of Alzheimer's and the benefits of an early diagnosis. We just discussed the warning signs. Do you notice any of these signs in yourself or the person you're concerned about? Step 4. Has anyone else noticed the changes you've observed? Talk with friends and family. Find out what, if any, changes they've noticed. Have a conversation. Now that you've identified the changes you've observed and want to discuss, the next steps will help you prepare for the conversation. Step 5. Think about who should be the one to discuss concerns with the person. It could be you, a trusted family member or friend, or a combination. It's usually best to speak one-on-one so that the person doesn't feel threatened or deceived, but use your knowledge of the person's preferences to determine what approach might work best. Step 6. When and where should the conversation be held? It's important to talk to the person as soon as possible. In addition to identifying a date and time, you should also consider where the person will feel most comfortable.
Okay, so what happened with my husband was people at work were noticing something. I'm not around him 24 hours a day. So we were traveling for a trip, and on that trip, like, he was looking at sites like it was new to him, a path that he traveled every day. And I said, like, this is strange, you know, and the behavior was just not typical. I called the office and I said, what does his day look like? What is he doing at work? And they're like, well, we have noticed a few things. And I said, you didn't think to call me? You know, no one thought to call me. And so what they were doing was they were trying to, you know, he works with doctors and nurses, and they were all diagnosing. You can't do that. You cannot do that. You have to go through steps. You have to go through a process. A person who is just, I cannot diagnose anybody by just looking at them. There are steps. And so had they told me, then we could have collaborated, put all of our little, the glitches that we were seeing, because everybody was just seeing little glitches. Nobody was seeing huge glitches. And so you see a glitch and then the behavior is normal and typical and you just move on. It takes the collective data to come together to say, wow, there is really something wrong. So it wasn't until we were on the road driving that I was like, wow, his day is a wreck, you know, so what's going on? So then I called them and I said, no, you guys you're trying to take him through a process he doesn't understand. They wanted him to take a temporary disability retirement. He didn't understand the process. He didn't understand the process. So then I put on my advocacy hat and I started a big fight, and I took care of it.
Step 7. What will you or the person having the conversation say? You may want to jot down some questions to help guide the discussion. Consider the following suggestions. I've noticed changes in you, and I'm concerned. Have you noticed this? Are you worried? How have you been feeling lately? You haven't seemed like yourself. I noticed an unusual behavior, and it worried me. Has anything else like this ever happened?
And so when we had that conversation, one of the things he said, I think I'm losing my mind. And I said, oh, I don't think you're losing your mind. He said, I feel like sometimes I am. Like I just don't know where I am and I feel confused. And I said, well, why don't we just get it checked out? We can get it checked out. We can go to the doctor. And so we did. It's not that we didn't look for it. It's just when you're 48, 49, they're not looking for that. So it is much harder. So, you know, we went when he was 48. We went when he was 49. And they were like, no, he's good. We did cognitive testing, and he passed. He passed the cognitive testing. They did, you know, remember 5 words. He could remember the 5 words. He could draw a clock. But the nature of the disease was that it was progressive. So while you're waiting for it to get worse, it's getting worse. It got worse. So by the time we really figured it out, his neurocognitive exams, he was at one place one year and he was at another place the next year. That's how fast it was. And so it is important to get diagnosed early. It is important to try to get help, especially in 2024. In 2016, when he was diagnosed, they didn't have the medication that they have now. But those medications that they have now, those medications are working. They are breaking up the plaques and people are being held right where they are. That is good news. I have 2 friends right now that are on it, and they are doing fantastic. They are doing great, and I am so happy, and I'm very encouraged by that. It just wasn't available when he was diagnosed. They weren't offering anything like that.
Step 8, offer to go with the person to the doctor. Ask if he or she will see a doctor and show your support by offering to go to the appointment with them. Try using encouraging words such as, there are lots of things that could be causing this. Let's see if the doctor can help us figure out what's going on. The sooner we know what's causing these problems, the sooner we can address them. I think it would give us both peace of mind if we talk to a doctor. Step 9, if needed, have multiple conversations. Don't be discouraged if the first conversation is not as successful as you'd hoped. Write down notes about how it went so that you can prepare for future conversations. Don't dismiss the changes you're noticing simply because the person is reluctant to address them or the conversation didn't go as planned. Sometimes the person isn't aware of these changes or may not want to admit the changes are occurring.
And that would be hard for anybody to admit that they're having difficulties. This isn't an easy thing to admit.
Now that you've identified the changes and understand how to approach the person about your concerns, you may want to reach out for additional support. Step 10, you can turn to the Alzheimer's Association. Call our free 24/7 helpline to talk with specialists and master's level clinicians who can provide reliable support and information, including how to have this important conversation. The helpline's phone number will be listed at the end of this program.
And I'll give you cards with that phone number as well.
The most important step is to see a doctor. Most people address concerns about memory, thinking, and behavior with their primary care physician first. In some cases, the primary care physician may refer the person to a specialist for further evaluation. Examples of specialists include geriatricians, who have additional training in medical care for diseases and conditions common among older adults, generally over age 65. Neurologists, who specialize in diseases of the brain and nervous system. It's important to note that not all neurologists specialize in Alzheimer's and other dementias. Neuropsychologists, who can assess, diagnose, and treat psychological disorders associated with brain-related conditions. Psychiatrists, who specialize in disorders that affect mood or the way the mind works, and psychologists with special training in testing memory and other mental functions.
So we had every one of those on our team with the exception of the geriatrician because he was 50. So we didn't have a geriatrician, but the neurologist, the neuropsychologist, the psychiatrist and psychologist helped us when he was getting diagnosed.
Now that we know what signs to look for and how to approach a conversation about memory concerns, let's learn about the benefits of knowing early on if it's Alzheimer's or another dementia.
There are a number of benefits in early detection of Alzheimer's. For one thing, a person is able to have a voice in what happens next. They can make plans. They can live life more on their own terms. They can also make plans for the future, financial plans, care plans. They can let people know what they want, which can be a real gift later on. It also allows time for families to make plans and to make decisions about who can do what and figure out care and those kinds of issues. Some people are interested in clinical trials. Clinical trials allow people to have access to treatments that aren't available yet. And for some people, that can be a really important thing to pursue.
So we are blessed to be in a place
Let's
where we
recap what we've
where
learned
we
in
where
this
we have
section.
KU.
Pay attention to changes you notice.
So what my encouragement to you is, if you are even thinking, if you have a family history, if you want to be part of clinical trials, you can go there and talk to Dr. Burns and Michelle Needens, and they will get you set up to where they are monitoring you and checking you. And a lot of people do it. A lot of people they have a concern, they have a mother or father, it's in their family, and so they just want to be on top of it. And I can tell you that too is helpful. When Jose was diagnosed, us getting in clinical trials, the tsunami was too great. Our life was so upended. I was trying to find money. I was trying, 3 kids, 2 in college, driving him to KU at that time. It just wasn't something that I could do. I was just trying to keep him from he was just so sad and so depressed. Doing that was just it wasn't something that we could do. And they kept calling. Dr. Burns was really consistent. I'd really like to see your husband. I just could not make it happen. So for other people, if it's earlier, you probably could. But man, we were so behind the Powerball. We were a mess.
In people's memory, thinking, or behavior. If you observe any unusual behaviors or problems, take action by talking with the person. Consider using the 10 steps to approach memory concerns as a guide for this conversation. Personalize it based on what you know about the individual so that you are approaching the person in the most supportive way possible. Early detection is important. There are a number of benefits to receiving an early and accurate diagnosis, such as the opportunity to plan for the future, explore treatment options, and participate in clinical studies. In this next section, we will explore what may be involved in the medical process to determine the cause of symptoms. To start, let's test your knowledge. True or false? There is currently no way to diagnose Alzheimer's disease.
False.
This is false. Many people still incorrectly believe that an Alzheimer's diagnosis can only be determined by an autopsy. However, a number of assessments and tests make it possible for healthcare professionals to diagnose Alzheimer's with a high degree of certainty. But determining the cause of dementia can sometimes be more difficult. Click Next to explore. The assessments and tests listed here are commonly used to determine an Alzheimer's diagnosis. Because the diagnostic process varies from person to person, a doctor will determine which are the best tests to use for each individual. Assessments may include medical history, physical exam, screen for depression, and an interview with close companions. Tests may include laboratory tests, mental cognitive status tests, brain imaging, and cerebrospinal fluid analysis. As an example, on Mary's chart, you can see the specific course of action her doctor ordered.
We had everything except the cerebrospinal fluid test, and we had 2 PET scans and 2 MRIs.
Do dementia-like symptoms always result in a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or another dementia?
No, they do not.
Back with the Garcia family, Lydia and Patricia reach out to ask if the changes they've observed in their mother could possibly be related to something else. Click the play button to hear what Dr. Soloway has to say.
Someone could have high blood pressure that's out of control, or they might have a thyroid condition that's not regulated, or diabetes that's not right, or on a medication that actually can cause memory loss. Drinking too much alcohol can make memory worse. So there are a lot of factors that go into cognitive difficulty with aging that some of them can be remedied. And so we want to do everything we can to improve cognitive ability and quality of life.
So that's good news. Not everything is going to be
To recap,
dementia.
the diagnostic process will vary from person to person, depending on an individual's specific situation and what the doctor feels is the right course of action for that person. Multiple conditions can cause cognitive changes, which is why it's essential to obtain a full medical evaluation to determine whether symptoms are related to Alzheimer's or something else. Stigma and misconceptions about Alzheimer's, like believing that nothing can be done, can sometimes discourage people from consulting a medical professional. If the diagnosis is Alzheimer's, what's next? Let's find out what Mary's daughters, Lydia and Patricia, do. Seeking information and support is also an important next step. Let's learn more about the resources and services provided by the Alzheimer's Association. The Alzheimer's Association is in communities across the country, providing direct service to individuals and families facing the disease. The Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. Our vision is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. The association is available wherever and whenever you need reliable information and support. Our 24/7 helpline provides access to highly trained and knowledgeable staff who can help with education, decision-making support, crisis assistance, and resource identification. Our website, alc.org, is often the first stop for individuals following a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or another dementia. It includes sections specifically for people living with the disease and caregivers. The Alzheimer's Association and AARP Community Resource Finder is a tool that helps individuals find dementia and aging-related programs and services in their area, including local association offices and their offering of services. Visit alc.org/CRF. Click the play buttons to hear more about these resources from people who have used them.
I've had a couple of phone calls that I've been able to make in to the call center when I've had a couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask. You know, there's been a couple of nights, 2 o'clock in the morning, you have questions, you have anxieties, and I was struggling dealing with them, and it's amazing. It was one of the best things I ever did was keeping the call center on my favorites now. Just to know that there's somebody you can call who is aware of what you're going through.
Absolutely.
When I went to the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org, there I was trying to find out more about what was Alzheimer's, what really is this disease, what is younger onset Alzheimer's, what is dementia, is there a cure, How long has this been around? How many people are affected by this? Where can I go for resources? Where can I go for help? What do I do with this? How can I handle this? Is there more people like me out there? Is there someone that I can talk to if I need to? And there I found a support line that's 24 hours a day. And there I found where I can go for workshops, where I can go and read things and postings that people have done, where I can find out what events is happening in the Alzheimer's Association, where I can see how it's affecting people around the globe.
Since I've been diagnosed with dementia, the one place that I know I can go to for assistance and help and support is to the Alzheimer's Association. There are people there that I know by name that I can contact if I'm having a difficult time or if I'm struggling to find some resource, that they will provide that to me.
And that's true. That's who we used, and it's the first place where I heard the word hope.
Now that we've taken a basic look at Alzheimer's and what resources are available, let's talk about how you can take action in the fight against the disease. Click the tabs on the left side of the screen to display information about each way to join the fight. Volunteer. Whether you can spare a few hours a week or make a more significant time commitment, consider volunteering with the Alzheimer's Association. Numerous opportunities are available, including becoming a community educator or joining your local Walk to End Alzheimer's committee. Visit alz.org/volunteer to learn more. Advocacy. Becoming an Alzheimer's Association advocate and speak out on behalf of the needs and rights of those facing Alzheimer's disease. Visit alcimpact.org.
We go to Topeka every February, and they go to DC every year. And those are things that I do. I do all of these.
Trial match. Everyone can help advance Alzheimer's research by participating in clinical trials. Get started with Alzheimer's Association Trial Match, a free, easy-to-use clinical studies matching service. Visit alz.org/trialmatch. Walk to End Alzheimer's. Start or join a team for the Alzheimer's Association Walk to End Alzheimer's and raise critical funds and awareness. Held annually in more than 600 communities nationwide, Walk to End Alzheimer's is the world's largest fundraiser for Alzheimer's care, support, and research. Visit alz.org/walk.
We walked last week, and it was our 8th walk, and I'd like to do a walk in Leavenworth because I don't think the people in Leavenworth are willing to drive out there, but I need to know 1,200 people are going to be there. I think that they will, but I think we should organize one locally because people aren't going to go out to Kansas City.
The longest day. On the longest day, the day with the most light, or the summer solstice, raise funds and awareness for the care, support, and research efforts of the Alzheimer's Association through an activity of your choice. Start now. Select your activity at alz.org/thelongestday.
And so for the last 7 years, my daughter has had a bake sale called the Sweet Exchange, and this church has been a huge help. And in this kitchen, last summer, she baked 7,500 baked goods units for sale and raised $43,000. And since she's been doing this, she has raised over $150,000 for Alzheimer's care and research. So you can make a difference in the fight. And she is a recent graduate of Johnson & Wales University in Charlotte, North Carolina, and got her first job as a pastry chef at Disney World Resorts in Orlando.
Thank you for taking this program. To learn more about Alzheimer's and other dementias, visit alz.org. For more online education programs, visit alz.org/education.
Okay. Now, I know that was a lot of information, but it's good information, and you really kind of need to find a place for it as you are living in community with other people. There's things you're going to see and notice, and it takes all of us. It takes subjective data, objective data, medical testing, all of that is how you come up with a diagnosis. It's not just one thing. And so that's what it took to get my husband diagnosed. And although it's a brutal diagnosis, it is a diagnosis that you live with long before you die from it. You're going to live with it way longer than you're going to die from it. So we've got to encourage people to get diagnosed so that they can learn to live with it. So the second part is we'll talk about what it's like to live with it, but we're going to